Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Second Act Actors. I'm your host, Dr. Janet McMorty, and I am still a medical doctor simultaneously trying to pursue a career in acting. My guest this week is a fellow Janet. Our name is rare enough in society these days that anyone named Janet, when you meet another Janet, we get pretty excited, as you'll see in this episode. Janet Walmsley. Janet was a dental hygienist for 27 years before her son found an ad in the newspaper for auditions for a theater production and said, "Mom, you should audition." And then her career in acting just skyrocketed from there. We have a ton in common, not just our first names, but also we are both West Coasters. She lives there. I'm still a West Coaster at heart because I was born and raised out in the West. But again, we are both second act actors and really committed to celebrating those of us who decided to pursue a career in acting after first act and that little bit later on in life. Please enjoy the lovely, charming, incredible fellow Janet, Janet Walmsley. He's a good-looking guy, and he's helped with. Well, I'm biased, of course, because I think I look like him.
Of course, he's good. Well, you've got a real natural prettiness about you. So,
thank you.
I'm sure
it's all my dad.
Yeah, it's your dad, and I'll say I'm my dad too. Well, that's cool. There's nothing wrong with, as we'll talk this. There's nothing wrong coming in at a older age. Exactly what I did.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So with that being said, tell me your story.
Well,
fellow Janet.
Hello, how are you? Janet. This is sort of funny when I heard your name was Janet. I was going, her name's Janet too. Well, I'll remember her name. I'll know to remember her name. Well, do you know, the funny thing was, it was kind of surprised how I came back into acting. I did it, which a lot of actors have done. I did it in elementary school, high school, junior high. You know, you do the theater play, you do the plays, get into choirs and things like that. And then I got into some modeling and some commercials. But then at 17 or 16, when I was going to graduate from school, I had gotten these. I'd submitted. I was in Manitoba. I come from Brandon, and I submitted to Toronto and I submitted to Vancouver to acting schools. And I got accepted in both, but when I went to show it to my parents, they said, "You are getting a real profession like your sisters," because I was the youngest, and I went, "But acting is a real profession." Of course, the sulk went on. So I went in and ended up doing dental hygiene assisting for 27 years. So the surprise to get back into acting was my son, who I had become a single parent. And I had my son, who was a very young teen, and my daughter, Jenny, who was diagnosed with autism at 3. That's a whole different story. But I remember him calling me into the living room this one night. I was finishing stuff off in the kitchen. He said, "Mom," he says, "come here." He says, "I remember how much you liked doing plays and that in school, and you showed me in your yearbook." He says, "I want you to go audition for this." And there was a play that was in the paper called Harvey. And this was in the Okanagan, because we were living in the Okanagan in Vernon. And he says, "I want you to go audition for this play." And I looked at him, I went, "Oh," I says, "that is very sweet of you, very sweet of you." But I says, "I'm not making a fool of myself and going to go in some play, you know." And I says, "And I haven't done it since I was 16. And he said, my son has got these big, beautiful blue eyes that he got from his grandpa, my dad. And he said, "Please, please, you do so much for Jenny. You do so much for me. Please, please, please do it." And the next thing I'm saying is, "Okay," but in my head I'm going, "Are you crazy? Why would you even accept to say you're going to go do this?" But I had to, because I promised him I would. So I phoned, got a audition time, did the audition. Gotta say, had a great time with it, had so much fun. But as I left out of the theater, I thanked them and left. I went, "Okay, Janet," got in the car, "get back to reality. You're a single mom, you got these 2 kids, get back to reality." And wouldn't you know it, the next day I get a phone call from the assistant director, and she goes, "Hey, Janet, this is Scotty." She says, "We loved your audition. Want you take on the role of Myrtle May Simmons and Harvey?" And I'm just going, like you see in the cartoons, your mouth, their jaws drop. I'm just going, what? So she had to repeat herself and say, "Yeah, we want you to take on the role of Myrtle May. Love to have you. We just loved you what you did." And I'm going, that word, I said again, "Okay." And then when she hung up, I'm still looking at the phone going, what just happened? And then so I did my first play, which my mom got to see. My dad unfortunately passed away suddenly, but my mom got to see. And I remember coming up afterwards because they have the opening night party, and I remember her coming up. She goes, "I'm so sorry, Janet." And I looked at her and I thought maybe she broke something because she was staying with us because she was in White Rock. And I said, "Oh, it's okay, Mom, we can replace it." She goes, No. She says, "I'm sorry, I never let you go to those acting schools." She says,
Oh my God.
Yeah, she said, "I saw how much you loved it and your passion for it." And I said, "Mom, I was just young. I was a bit upset, yes." But I says, "Hey, I got to do it now." Never thinking, Janet, that I would I never thought I'd get back into acting. So I ended up doing more plays. I ended up directing. Then I ended up being on the board. And then my daughter got accepted to Vancouver Film School. So I moved to Vancouver, and that's where things really started popping. I mean, I started doing as much as you could in the Okanagan with acting. But then someone saw me on stage and says, "Hey, you got an it factor. You got to get on film and TV." And I went, "What? Like, what's happening here?" And then it all began here. One of the guys I was taking classes with when I was living in Vernon, my friend and I would drive 5 hours, take a 3-hour class, drive back. That's where the passion is, right, for an actor. And he introduced me to a Vancouver agent, and the rest is history.
Wow.
That was a long mouthful, wasn't
it? What? That's such a lovely story. And I think, especially with the connection with your mom, that must have been what a moment.
Yeah, I've got goosebumps. I really do have goosebumps.
Me too.
Because
Me too.
My dad never got to see me go, and I knew my dad wouldn't have probably minded, because when my mom was saying that's not happening when I was 16, 17, my dad's behind her going, because my dad, I'm very much my father. So am I. My mother was British, more reserved, but lovely woman. But yeah, so so to have her say that, just really tugged at the old heartstrings.
Yeah. When you went to that audition, correct me if I'm wrong, but I love what you kind of said there about you kind of got to, it's like escapism, right?
Yes.
That's what acting is, right? Escaping, and then you kind of get brought back down to reality.
Yes.
Is that what's kind of keeping you in the world, do you think? Or what else do you love about this acting weird industry we're now in?
Well, what I love about it so much, when I first, because when you do theater, right, theater, you have to be, very expressive. You have to make sure your voice carries, your facial features goes right out to the back of the theater. Where when I started doing acting classes, and I remember Matthew from Actors Foundry, he said to me, "Okay, Janet, you got this. You can act." He says, "But we got to get you to tone it down." Because after I looked at myself the first time on screen when I did my scene, I went, "Oh my God, that was scary." It was like Greta Garbo, whatever her name. She goes, "It's time for my close-up." Well, that's what I was like on the screen, and I just sort of went like this. So I think it's that, I think it's this. My passion for acting comes not for the money. I mean, yes, we work very hard as actors. A lot of people go, "Oh, you just learned your lines, then you go for it." I go, we don't just learn our lines and go for it. There's not a homework dissection, you got to know your scene, your characters. But it's just the fact that I don't do it for the money. I don't do it for the fame, or I want to be star, get the attention. That, I like under the radar. You see what movie stars and that go through sometimes for themselves personally and families. But my passion for it is, I know that this audience member, whoever's in the audience, whether it be stage, whether it be you're in a movie theater, or whether they're just watching Netflix or whatever on TV or whatever, those people have paid for whatever, way they've done it. But who knows what their day's like? Did they have a bad day? Did they have a hard day at work? Are they on a date? Do they just want to escape from that world and come play with you in in your world. And I think if I've made them laugh, cry, get mad, get scared, or just be confused, I've done my job, because I've brought them into my school, my skin, so that they feel the whole scenario as well. And I think what I really enjoy about acting is, I don't know if you remember, this is probably your dad and I's era, but Mr. Dress Up and the Tickle Trunk.
Of course. Oh my God.
Yeah, and it's like jumping into Mr. Dress Up's tickle trunk. We get to do this all the time and get on this different wardrobe, these different faces, and we get to go play dress up. Who else gets to go do that? Whether it be a drama or a dark comedy or Nickelodeon or whatever. That's the passion that keeps me in it. And I know some people find it hard, because we know that sometimes acting can be fickle. Sometimes it can be dog eat dog. I'm going to be very up and down. And I always, in the class I teach, Shifting Lanes, I always give my 4 P's, so that you hold on to, number 1, the passion. You hold on to the perseverance. You hold on to the positiveness of it all. So it's just so that you just hang on to that. You always remember why you got into acting in the first place, in that first audition or first background role you did, and you just instill that and try to not let your inner flame flicker, but let it stay strong.
Is there anything, so your first act, I mean, if we were to like define it, it would be like dental hygiene.
Yeah.
But I think there's so much more to that first act, right?
Oh.
With your life as a single mom, with your kids.
Yeah.
What have you found you've been able to bring in from that experience now into your acting career?
Yeah, that is a really good question, because when I look at my dental assisting, one thing that you really had to, and when hygiene too, is that patience and that listening ear to a patient. Because let me tell you, people going into a dental chair isn't their favorite place to be. I had an RCMP guy almost break my hand because he was so scared in the chair. But it's that respect to your patient. It's the respect to your coworkers, the dentist you're working to. It's the working together as a team. And we know in acting, you work as a team. Right? You work as a group. You work with the director one-on-one, like a dental assistant works with a dentist one-on-one. But there's also, I find with acting and with dental assisting, is just being there for one another. Just like as being a single parent, I had to be both parents. Unfortunately, both I had 2 marriages, and both. I'm not going to do a Elizabeth Taylor, go for 8 marriages, but I wanted to be there for both my children, but I had to play the mother and the father role. So I feel a lot with this first act has given me the ability to have the patience, the respect, which I feel I always had, but I learned even more of it from doing the job as a dental assistant, and the one-on-oneness and making the other person feel good. And listening ear, right? When we're in an audition, the best magic comes no matter what you've done your homework on, but if you're really tunnel visioned and listening to your reader and what they're saying, magic can come out. I've been a reader in casting rooms too, and it's just that feel back and forth that you get with that listening ear. Yeah.
That's really interesting, and it's funny that you're the first person to kind of mention that listening aspect of the first act. And I think, a lot of people's first acts were like maybe not so much ones that required a lot of listening, a lot of collaboration and business acumen, which is obviously very important for the business of acting. But yeah, and I think that is making me really think about my first act, well, still continue, like simultaneous act of being a doctor,
yes.
Like how much I need to remember how much that benefits me with the listening part of acting, which honestly, I had no clue how important listening was when I first started acting. I had no clue, because I thought, just like what you were saying, people have told you, you just learn your lines and then you go.
Yeah, and I always remember, remember my coaches saying this to me too when I first started, it's not about you, when you're acting. It's about the other person. And I felt that same way in the dental chair. It's not about me. It's about that patient. Because I always knew it wasn't, some people didn't mind going, but a lot were very fearful in the dental chair. I can understand it. But then what I did for quite a few years, I was also in the kids' room. Oh my gosh. Talk about going Disney. I went Disney theatrical with these kids because I would be shouting out, okay, here's the flavors of fluoride, because I do it like ice cream. And I'd have adult patients in other hygienist rooms going, hey, we want to be in her room. They're having fun. Because I made it fun for them, right? So you get into the tickle trunk, and I made it like I was the fun dental assistant hygienist with them, because I'd have kids from 3 to young teens. And I just thoroughly enjoyed that. So there's the communication, because young kids, number one, they do not like being at the dentist. But then I'd have parents come to me, they can't wait to come. They want to see what flavor fluoride you have. So there's that as well. I had to put that little aspect in as well, working with kids. So,
Yeah, absolutely. When you teach your class, because again, correct me if I'm wrong, that's a class that you have mainly for people who are kind of coming into this a bit older?
Yes, shifting lanes.
Yeah, changing lanes.
Yeah, this was something I had a vision a few years back. And there's a fellow named Mark Gaudette from Actor Studios. I met him when I first moved from Vernon to Vancouver. And I talked to him about it. And he said, I'm game. You want to take it through our studio? Because I do it on Zoom. That way I can get people from across Canada. And what shifting lanes for me is a paying it forward. And I do it for these people. I'll do it for people who have never acted before, but wish they had of, but life got in the way. And yes, my class, it used to be 40 and up, but now we've changed it to 35 and up. So it's paying for people like that who never got the opportunity, and they're kicking themselves in the butt. They wish they did, because I always say it's never too late. It's never too late to go for your dreams. It's never too late to go after goals, and don't let anyone or anybody say you can't. Because I had in front of me where I had family, when I told them I was going to get back into acting or try it out at 40, I had family saying, seriously, Janet? I had friends going, what are you doing now? You know, and and then I had my boss at the time, because I went from dental assisting after 27 years. I was long in the mouth in it, so time to get out. But he said to me, Janet, there is no way that is ever going to happen. He says, you think you're going to get on TV or a movie? Well, I don't think so. And I just went, well, thank you for your opinion. So I think back to that, and that's why I thought with shifting lanes, people that have gone through that and people who are maybe wanting to get back in it, don't let anyone stop you. Because what you're going to do is you're going to kick yourself again if you don't give yourself the opportunity. So I do it for people like that. I do it for background actors who want to cross over to speaking roles, kind of think, oh, should I do it? Should I not? And then I do it for theater actors crossing over to film and TV. Maybe I want to give it a try. Oh, maybe I shouldn't. And then even novice actors that maybe have done a student film or maybe done a short film and think, I kind of like this. I think I want to further it more. So it's my way of paying it forward to let them know I started later in life, and I had these people saying negative things to me about it, but look where I am. I've been able to do, I never thought in my wildest dreams I'd be on a TV show or I'd be in a movie. I never ever thought. I never even thought I'd get back to theater. So that is my main goal for this, is to let people know, go for it. You might really surprise yourself. Or you find out if you don't. That's but at least you went for it. A person owes themselves that. You deserve that if that's what you want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If that makes sense. I hope I got that across right. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And so do you have any advice for people who want to try that? I would say any practical advice, because you already gave some great advice.
Yes.
Just getting out.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think, and this is what you asked such great questions, Janet.
Thank you.
I believe the number one thing to do if you really want to consider getting into acting is to get yourself with a background agency. There's two things here to do. Get yourself with a background agency, because what I find background does is you're on the set, but you're on the outside looking in. So when you're in background, you get to see how the camera operates, how the riggers work, how the sound work, how the boom work, how hair and makeup works, and then right to the nitty gritty of how a director works with an actor, how props change or lines change or blocking changes. We all know that, right, Jen? How that can all change. And then you see how the producer comes in and works with the director, who in turn works with the with the actor as well, and the camaraderie. Sometimes you see a good set, sometimes you see not so good a set where things are going well and things are not. But it gives you, to me, the 110%, every nook and cranny experience, knowledge to see what it's like on set. Because if I had some people that I knew did background and then they said, oh, I don't like this, and then you've heard others that just love it. So then you can carry on from background, and then you can start going into maybe student films. Like Vancouver, we have tons of filmmaking schools here, like Vancouver Film School, Emily Carr, Capilano, and they're all over, like Toronto, all over. But it gives you that eye-opener, that enlightenment, that insight. I always go the step-by-step approach. I always feel it works in a person's favor. I've heard mainstream actors who I know who were just given it to, they just went into it just right away, like they were just given this supporting or lead role, and they said it scared the heck out of them, because they said they didn't know anything about set, and one guy said the set was not a nice set to work on, and they said they got mentally and physically ill. So there's nothing wrong with doing a step-by-step approach, even if you're older. I had a guy say to me in my class, I got to get it now, I'm 66, like, your dad's going to be in like me, got to do it now because I'm getting older and I'm going to, but after he took my class, he said, oh God, he said, thank God I took your class. He says, because I would have jumped in not knowing anything about film and TV, and I could have really screwed up for myself, to say it bluntly. He says, I said, I says, you got to be careful because you want to go a foot forward, not 10 steps back. And then another thing is, get into community theater. So many casting directors and agents, when they look at your resume and they see you've done theater, they love it. Because as we all know, or what is said, theater is a lot more hard for acting than film and TV. Film and TV, you can cut, go, cut, go, cut, go. Hey, when you're doing theater, it's just you're on there for how many hours with your break in between. But hey, if there's a blooper or if there's something that happens, someone forgets their line or something happens, you gotta improv and keep going. But I love theater. Yeah. I'd say theater is my number one niche. But that's what I would, as advice would be to do background, then get into short films and little independent films and do some theater. Because I always say in my class, and I always sound like a broken record because I say it every class, I go, do not put yourself in front of a agent, which in turn will put you in front of a casting director until you are ready. And that is the development, the training, the classes, the background work, getting into short films. Because by doing that step by step, not only are you doing yourself a favor by doing that, but it's going to be a favor for you in front of an agent and a casting director when you go to them.
Yeah, and that leads beautifully into my next question, because I was just thinking about my own experiences, having that thought of, because I didn't know much about the industry.
Oh, yes.
Being like, yeah, let's go. I want to go. I want to be in front of these directors. I want to do this and do that. Without I was trying to run a marathon without learning how to run. And
you know what? And that's, you know what, Janet, you have gone exactly where a lot of actors go, okay? Because I get it, and I explain this to my students. I really get it, because you know what? I remember I was too. You're so passionate. You want it now. You just want to get in there. You want to show them what you've got. You even in a one-liner, you're almost doing a Shakespearean monologue. I've seen people, and I'm just going, holy smokes, because they want to show everything they can. But I always say, if you're going to see a casting director for the first time, or if you're going to see an agent for the first time, really make sure you know what your brand is. What is the number one wheelhouse of a brand, a character, a role, a scenario, a genre that you can knock their socks off in an audition room and they're going to sit up and go, pardon my French, who the hell is that? You want to show that. And then the other variety of your brands will come. It will come. But casting directors don't know you. So an agent's going to ask you, because I talent scout for my agency that I'm with, I'm their talent scout, they they want to know what your brand is. What is that role? What is that character? So that when we first put you in front of your first casting director, it's one that you can so effervescently bring it off the page. It just is so natural, it just flows. You know, you almost feel like you haven't done your homework, but you have. But you know what that's like when you get some scenes, some sides that are just, oh, they're just beautiful and they just come off the page. And then you get others, you got to pull the teeth, but you still got to do your homework on that the writing might not be as good. But as actors, we have to get that out of there. But that's very important. So that's good that you mentioned that, because it is, and especially when your passion's there. But that's when we have to ring ourselves in, and we have to do this. I just always feel that step by step, especially when you're starting out. Make sure you've done background, make sure you've done classes, workshops, make sure you're ready. And I always say this, and I don't mean it in a meanness, I mean it very loving and caring. You do not want to put yourself in front of an agent who in turn, like I say, puts you in front of a casting director and you're not ready, because the greenness will show, the newness will show, and sometimes casting directors won't see you for 6 months to a year afterwards, because they go, oh, lovely person, but they need more training, especially with a standard American accent.
Oh my God.
There's another avenue in itself that I had a shocker when I first started that I didn't even know about. Yeah.
Yep. Especially up in Canada, where we film a lot of Hallmark and they want standard American. I am waiting for the blessed day to occur when they go, you know what? Let's just admit that we're filming all this in Canada and we'll make all the American actors do a standard Canadian.
Oh!
I want to hear some sorries.
Yes! Oh! I so agree with you. Boy, you and I are in the same wavelength, because it's so true. I have had... Because when I first started out, I remember I went and saw Tiffany Mack, who's now a huge casting director here, and this is when she was first starting out, because this was 10, 11 years ago or whatever. And I remember going in, doing the scene, and she goes, oh, Janet, she says, that was great. We liked it. You know, the producers liked it. She goes, ugh, you got to get rid of that Canuck accent. And I went, what? What Canuck accent? Because I wasn't dumb. I knew there was North Carolina, Virginia. I mean, I did a role on Fargo, the TV series, where I did Deb, and I knew Minnesota because I'm from Manitoba, and we speak very Minnesotan. Right? So when she said this to me, I went, what? So I didn't know that there was such a big difference between the standard American accent to the standard Canadian. And something you mentioned here, which is very good, I know, being in the union here, and I don't know what they're saying in Toronto, but they're saying, oh my God, if you're going to include diversity and stuff, you should have diversity in the languages too. Because
yes, please.
when I think of this, I always say this: we're such a melting pot, this world, and so many people in the melting pot have come to the States, they've come to Canada. I feel, why can a person not use their own accent? It's not even, I know there's a difference, but the only thing I would say is if a person has an extremely strong accent where they're not enunciating and you can't really understand them because the accent's so strong, yes, just if they could work on it just to make it a little bit, easier to understand. But on the whole, why can't we just all be ourselves? Because you're right. Like, I know we do a lot of Hallmarks here, a lot of these real entertainment movies of the week. I was on one, a romance wedding. It was just on TV the other day. But 99%, like you say, are American productions. But I mean, really, we're waiting for the day, like you said, when they finally go, let's cut this. Like, come on. It's kind of, to me, it's ridiculous.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's one thing that came up strong. And that's one thing
besides the...
No, you go. Sorry, you go.
No, I was going to ask something else, but keep.
No,
keep
well, I was just saying, and this is.
Let's rant about accents.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, this is why when I teach my class, I always say to them, you got to do audition classes, scene study classes, voice work, and stuff like that. But one thing I said you got to put on top of it all is standard American for right now. Yeah.
For right now.
Yeah.
Hopefully not forever. I totally agree. Yeah. Was there anything else besides the accent that surprised you about the entertainment industry when you got going again?
Well, the thing is, I think it's very important as much to learn how the essence of being an actor, because I say acting is schmacting. You have to be. It's being. It's jumping yourself into that skin of that person. But I think Another big thing was the industry itself. I think actors, especially when they're first coming into it, and as we progress and go up our step ladder, I think it's knowing what the industry all entails. The networking part of it, going to events, like right here, we have like Crazy Eights, we've got the UBC awards, we've got Leo awards, and going to events, and I know some people are very introverted, so it's harder. I'm more extroverted. I'm a very sociable person, but what I found is going and networking and going to things like cold reading series, which help you with acting as well, and my tribe table reads and things like that, because you get to know what the industry's all about and what's going on in your industry in your area, but they also get to know you. And it's amazing, a lot of the events and a lot of things I've gone to where I have booked roles because of it. And I've gotten to know people, but I've also gotten to know the fickleness of it, the up and down of it. I've been very fortunate. I've worked on really good sets. So I've had great directors, co-actors and things like that. But I think with the industry, it's just the biggest difference between theater and film and TV, because it's so different. Like we were talking about, like it's a whole different ball game. And that was a bit of a shock to me, because you just think it's acting, you act the same way you did on theater, but it's not. It's a whole different ball game. But I also think for me, now I've gone the different avenues. I've gone from actor to talent scout. So I've learnt in talent scout what an agent likes to see from an actor. You know, from right from their headshots to their resume to their demo reel. And also I have something called I got something else I do is called actors ducks in a row for actors, where I help actors get their professional and personal actor packages so they pop in front of an agent. Because I've had so many people want to see my agent, but they hand me their material and I go, oh. So I go through it all with them. And there's also something I do with a cover letter that's very different. They can do it either or. I ask for a written one or a video one. And each person is different. Yeah, so when you have a video type one, you get to know the person's personality more. You get to know what they're like in their voice, their physical, quirks, or if they have anything, and it's really cool. Some people like to do it, some don't. But I try to make for each individual actor something that pops. So I've learned that from being in the industry. Even teaching classes in the industry has been different for me as well. And I think it's just, some people say that in the acting industry of Vancouver it can be kind of cliquey. I haven't per se, I don't know if you have in Toronto, I haven't per se had that. I mean, I think when you're just, for me, it's a little bit more social. I'm so sociable that I just get in there. Yep, who are you? Like, well, not right in their face, but I get to know people.
Well, and I think, I'm sure there are cliques in Toronto, and I mean, COVID obviously scrambled everything, and I got into this industry during COVID, so I have no idea, prior to COVID, maybe it was just like the popular kids hung out in this side of the cafeteria. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, what I found is that the people who I've always networked with and gotten to know are just so lovely, kind, and generous.
Yes.
But you have to be, especially in Canada, this tiny, tiny market where there's so many of us and it's quite competitive.
Yes.
But if you become that catty competitiveness, the word gets around. And why would you want to work with someone like that? No. Be a nice person.
Yes, and you know what? That's where I love being Canadian, right, Janet? Like, we are. And I know there's nice people all over the world, but that's the thing is, be yourself, but there's where that respect comes in. There's where that listening ear, being patient, but being positive, perseverance. It's really, really important. And I just find that people get very, I've had people just quit the industry. Because they're just not booking or they're not auditioning. And I understand it. But that's where you have to keep that flame in your heart. Don't let it come to a flicker. And I know it's hard. We're all human. We're all human, and that's understandable. But that's one thing I'll say about this profession. You have to be patient. You have to be able to persevere, and you have to take the positive out of the negative. Because I know a lot of people, when they do auditions and they think, oh, I should have got that. Why didn't I get that? Well, as we know, it can be down to you didn't have the right hair color, you didn't have the right eye color, you didn't have the right tone of voice. I had a role that the casting director and director both wanted me. And the producer said, yeah, she did the best audition. But I took this as a compliment when I heard him say this. She's not big enough, like fat enough, and she doesn't have enough wrinkles. And I went, but the director was fighting with me, going, well, why can't we just put on a fat suit, and why can't we just add on the wrinkles? He wanted it all natural. So I understand that. But the thing is, when you do auditions like that, and that you were up there, you got to remember they might think of you for another role, for something else, another TV show, another movie. And I always say, and I know this sounds funny, I don't want to sound like Charlie Sheen, but to me, you've already won when you've been requested for an audition. Because do you know how many other people were submitted for that audition but never got requested? You got requested. So you have to take that as a win and be proud of that. Maybe you didn't book it, and the booking is the bonus, right? The booking is the bonus. Just like I say, the audition is the appetizer. You get to give a bit of yourself in that, but then you're on set, and that's the full schmort, right? Where you just give her. Yeah.
Do you have any fun set stories? A favorite moment?
Well, I do have a couple. My first one I gotta say is being flown to Calgary to do the third season of Fargo, and that was Ewan McGregor's season, where he played the two brothers. I remember when we're just about ready to do our scenes, and I remember I was just looking at some props because I was playing the secretary of Ewan McGregor's lawyer, Deb. So I'm looking at the props, and all of a sudden on my peripheral vision, I look up, and there's a person there, puts his hand out and says, hi, Janet, I'm Ewan. It's so nice to meet you. And I'm going, okay, Janet, he's an actor just like you, so just smile. Because I was ready to go, because I've always thought he's such a cool dude. So we had such a conversation. We were talking about the accent. And he said, oh, you're a cheater, you're from Manitoba, because I told him Manitobans, because Minnesota wasn't far away, so we used to go for holidays there. Because with a Scottish accent, he said, then learning the American Standard.
Oh my God, yeah.
And he says, and then you got to learn that Minnesotan. And then we talked about his hair, because he said he had to shave his hair off and put the wigs on to play the different brothers. But then he says to me, after we were talking about it, that they were going to do his scene just before ours, because I was doing it with the other guy. So he says, Janet, you don't want to sit here? Come watch my scene. Tell me how I do. And I went, what? And then Michael Uppendale, who was the director, oh my gosh, Michael Uppendale, he's directed Glee, Boardwalk Empires, Legion, the Hollywood series, and more. He says, yeah, Janet, come watch. And I'm going, here's me, little Janet from Vancouver, just going, following behind them. And I was just going, whoa. And then the other actor that was working with Ewan on this is Michael, I feel terrible, I can't remember his last name, but he played the dad in Call Me Your Name with Timothy Chalamet. He did... Oh! This guy with accents is phenomenal. Talk about accents. And he was in Boardwalk Empires. He's done a lot. Well, and I got to meet him too. I'm just going... So I thought, if I never act again, I don't care, because this has just been wonderful, right? But a memory from stage... When you talk about funny moments, I was doing London Suite and I had the lead character of Annie, and this other fellow, he was playing my husband. And this night on stage, it was the part where we can't find our Wimbledon tickets. And we got flown to London to go to Wimbledon. So we're having a panic on that. And all of a sudden I looked at him, and he had this deer in the headlights look. And I went, uh-oh, he's forgot his lines. So I'm looking at him going, and we had a jam-packed house that night too. And I just looked at him, and I went, okay, here comes the improv. Come here, honey, I can't find my nylons, and I want to wear them today. I says, come on, let's look under the bed. So People are thinking it's part of the routine. So we both jump under the bed, and then he goes, Janet, I forgot my line. So I said, I think this is the line if I could, because sometimes you remember the other person's lines. So I said, he goes, oh yeah, that's it. So then I flung up the nylons and go, oh, here they is. And I go, oh, quit touching me. We can't do that now. We have to go to the game. So everybody's killing themselves laughing. And then that same night, I went to go open the door because the doctor was coming because my husband had hurt his back and he's laying on the floor. I go to open the door. The door wouldn't open. It was hilarious.
Oh my God.
So I'm putting my foot on it and going, out these darn English doors. And I'm trying to pull it open. And the doctor who's playing the doctor on the other side is killing himself laughing. Just literally killing himself laughing. So there's the thing. But I think a highlight for my acting career, I gotta say, Janet, is when I got nominated for Best Supporting Actress for Comedy at the ICE Awards in Los Angeles. We had so much fun. I took my daughter with me, and the director, one of the other actors, and someone else from the crew, we all went and flew to LA for it. Because the people in my category, I was just going, what? Because Alexandra Paul, I don't know if you know her, she is an American actress. She played the lieutenant in the older Baywatch series. Her first role was for a lead actress was, which I know because it's from the old days, it's a cult classic. It's called Christine. It's like sort of like a horror movie. It's a possessed car, and she's done other stuff. So she was in my category. Debbie Gibson, the singer, was in my category, and then this gal that I met. She had just done Blythe Spirit with Angela Lansbury on stage. So, and these women were wonderful. And one other actress actually was from England, but just a great group. And I met my idols like Richard Hatch, who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. I had a crush on him. He was in Battlestar Galactica. He was in TV movies. Judd Hirsch from Taxi was there. He was nominated. So just to be on a red carpet with all these humble people that were so kind. Eric Matzloff, he was the host, and he was been on Days in Our Lives for quite a long time, and he's done musical theater and that. Him and I had a connection because of the autism, because he would do sports with autistic kids, and as I said, my daughter is autistic, and so it was just a humbling experience, but a fun experience, and I met so many people in the industry, and it was just a joy to be nominated, and it was such a fun role because I played which was really out of my league, so it was a challenge. I played a German sex therapist.
Oh my God!
Dr. Hilda van den Garten. She was just, and he let me go for it, and I did. I just went for it.
What a ride! What's that from?
It's Single and Dating in Vancouver.
Single and Dating in Vancouver.
Yeah,
okay.
it's quite.
That
it was
awesome.
quite funny. And then I guess playing Grumio in Tammy of the Shrew back home on theater. I just loved what he was hard to let go. That was a character that was hard for me to let go. I had so much fun with him. Yeah. I got to improv and do all this physical stuff, and to play a male character, it was very, very different. So there's just been so many highlights and fun things, and meeting everybody on Once Upon a Time in a role in that, and meeting Harlan Williams, who's a Canadian comic, and he's also an American actor. Yeah. I was on Package Deal with him. So so there you go. It's never too late. It's just never too late. I never in my wildest dreams, Janet, thought this would happen. Never thought I'd get back to theater. Never thought I'd get into film and TV. What? I was starting to sound like my old boss. That's not gonna. But you know what? That's where you believe in yourself, you're confident in yourself, and just, you know what? Have fun. Yes, you have to be serious about it, but you really have to remember the passion and the funness of it all too. When I walk into going to go into an audition, before I go in, I just go, it's showtime. I get to go play and have fun, right? No matter what type of role it is, serious or not.
Yeah. I love that. That's such a great mindset, and I think it goes right back to kind of what you were saying you teach in your class and kind of keep that fire and the passion going, because I think, yeah, once that kind of candle and fire burns out, which, yeah, like you're saying, it can flicker. We're human, right? This is a weird industry. It can be really frustrating. But if it ever leaves, like, then there is no point, I think, because there's so many other things that you could be doing in this world.
Yes.
I mean, if you're in it for the money, don't be, because if you're in it for health benefits, go work at Starbucks because they'll give you health benefits. Like, you need to be in this fickle, weird industry for you.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's honestly not worth it.
Well, and I know one fellow, I'd taken classes with him when I first started out, and he was younger than me, but he took classes like I did. I mean, when I came to Vancouver, I was like a kid in a candy store. There were so many classes. I was just sucking it all in because we didn't have hardly anything back in the Okanagan at that time. And I remember he got, was it a supporting reoccurring or something on a series? And after he did it, he came back to me and the teacher goes, well, don't like it, getting out of it. I went, after all what you did, he just found out it just wasn't up his alley. And I really think that's where you have to come to terms with it, because it is a different type of a profession. But if you're passionate and if you love it, because let's face it, you can be auditioning like crazy and then you can be not. You can be auditioning and booking like crazy and then not. And I think this is when people get frustrated. But you know what I always say? Don't tunnel vision with your acting. Yes, you want to act, you want to get roles because you love it and that, but you should always have something else that you're doing in your life. So at the time when it is stagnant, I don't like saying that word stagnant, but time when it's not, you're not auditioning maybe as much, you're not booking as much, have something else that's going on in your life. Because otherwise, I've seen people go into a depression. I've seen them get mentally and physically ill. And that's not what it's supposed to be about. Then you really have to think about, are you in it for the right reasons, and should you be in it? That's why for me the joy of being a talent scout, doing these classes, doing this ducks in a row, but also is my daughter and I. I have a best-selling book about her autism journey. Jenny has a best-selling called Dysnomia. It's a fantasy fiction trilogy. So we're doing a lot of book signings. We're doing a speaking engagement next week at the Pacific Autism Center about our story and books. So that's my other avenue I go into when I'm not busy. But let's face it, with COVID, as Canadian actors, we've been very fortunate these last 2 years. But my heart goes out to anybody who's died of COVID, sick of COVID. But what it's done for us is people from all over the world have not been able to cross over. So it's given us more opportunities to audition, more opportunities to book, but also, this is number one, to book bigger roles. So we've been fortunate that way. I mean, everything's starting to stream back now, because what we were finding a lot of the times, I remember one girl saying to me one time that she went and auditioned and she came out, she goes, Janet, she says, I think they've already booked it, because that happens sometimes, that they've already booked the role with American actor. But I looked at her and I said, you know what? I can't think about it that way. I'm going to go in there, I'm going to knock their socks off, so they're going to want to kick out that American actor. Nothing to you American actors. Oh, sorry, but you know what I... You know what I mean? I can't even look at it that way. I just want to go in there, do my best. I've done my homework. Jack, you never know. You might say, oh, well, I kind of like that. Maybe, you just don't know, right?
Yeah, you just don't know. Is there anything you're looking forward to coming up this year?
Oh, boy. There's so much. I have a movie coming out called Invasions. And it's coming out, and it's either coming out through Crave or another avenue, but we did it in the Okanagan. This is a really cool psychological thriller movie, and I don't know if you know Lachlan Monroe, but I've been in a couple of things with him. Lachlan Monroe plays the dad in Riverdale, and he's been in movies with Clint Eastwood and all that. Well, I've done a couple of movies with him, and he's in this one too. But it's a really good psychological thriller. It was filmed in the Penticton area, and this is no word of a lie, but this story, it's a female director and writer. She's fantastic, Sophie. She wrote it where there's supposed to be fires going on in that, and this is when the Penticton fire was, the Okanagan fire. So we were filming within the fires. I remember driving to different locations that were outside of Penticton, and the smoke was almost up to the side of the highway. And it was so hot, and some of our takes were on on the pavement. So it'd be like 38, 39 because it was really hot. And the time when we were filming too in July and August, COVID had peaked the Okanagan. So there was so much going on, but such great, the heart and soul, the acting, the essence of this story. I am looking so forward to that. And there's been auditions I've been doing for major TV shows, movies, some I can't even say. I just did a fun commercial one for Old Spice yesterday. I haven't done very many commercials because Union don't have a lot of commercials really. And I've been more focused on the film and the TV shows and the movies. But I've just had opportunities for places in. I've auditioned for things in the States, for things in Quebec, for things in Toronto, for things, So I've been very fortunate, and I feel blessed what I've been auditioning for. So, you always cross your fingers. But what I always say? On to the next one. That's out of your hands, right? You're not in control of it. The casting director and the producer, and I mean, my agent showed me when I booked Fargo what the stepping stone it went through. I mean, right up even to the Coen brothers. And I'm going, okay, this is nuts. So, yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing this movie come out because so much heart and soul and hard work went into it. But I'm also looking forward to my daughter and I's book signings coming up. We've got 5 scheduled at Indigos and chapter stores in BC here. We're hoping one day to do a cross-Canada tour. Hey, come out to Toronto. And other speaking engagements. So that's fun. I'm a breast cancer survivor, so I'm seriously thinking of writing a humorous book about breast cancer.
Wow.
So there's a lot of avenues that are happening in the acting, in the books, and just doing things in my life as well. So
I love it. So much to look forward to.
Yeah. It's just it's just you when you put your heart and soul into films and you see the camaraderie in it. When you see people are working so hard, because nowadays these last 2 years we've been doing these self-tapes, and that's something else I talk about in my class too, because I don't know about you, I did my first physical audition yesterday, which was kind of, you go, oh yeah, we're back in the room. Because it's such, you're so used to being in the room, because what I love about the room is you get to read with the reader, even though you do when you're doing your self-tapes, but the reader's actually there. And then if the casting director has redirect, they can give it to you right there, so you can work on it. But when you're in your self-taping, you don't get that as much, because you're kind of redirecting yourself when you're looking at it.
Yeah.
But then self-tapes are great if you work. You can do it at night. You can do it early in the morning. But I always tell people, watch when you're self-taping. Don't do it 6 or 7 times, because you're not going to get that in an audition room. Try and do it to the 2, maybe the 3, because usually in a physical audition room, you get to audition once. Then sometimes you get to redirect them twice, and the odd time you'll get to do it a 3rd time. So if you're taking 6, 7 takes at home, you're not going to get that in a physical audition. So that's where you have to train yourself to make sure you can do that in that 1, 2, 3 at home as well.
Yeah. That's great advice. Again, that's the training, right? Just like you gotta be prepared for stuff like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have any final words of wisdom? No pressure.
No, you're not pressuring me. Let me say, thank you for having me, number one. You are a joy. You've got the most
thank you.
beautiful personality you're beautiful inside and out.
Thank you.
But your questions
So kind.
are you've made me so comfortable, and it's just, this conversation has flowed, and you're just so easygoing to talk to, and the questions are so good, because this will really relate to a lot of people, whether they're starting out or they're been in the industry. I think mainly is for people who are wanting to take the jump into acting. Go for it. I mean, seriously, just go for it. Give it your best shot and see if it's for you. But number one, have fun with it. Go do background, see what it's like, and if you go, hey, I think I'd like to try that, then try short films, because short films and student films, you don't need an agent per se. You can just audition yourself. Take classes. See if you like taking the classes and the workshops, because they're a key to, eventually being on set, getting an agent. And I would just say, for actors who've been doing it for a while, or whatever, ladder, your step you're on your ladder, just keep the passion, persevere, push down those girls, those barriers, those obstacles. I look at my daughter, who was diagnosed with low-functioning autism when she was 3. I was told she would never talk well, never do well in school, never be where her peers are. Her future was going to be bleak. I remember walking out of that specialist room because she didn't even give me a smidgen of positiveness. This was 26 years ago. And, I never even heard of the word autism. You couldn't, it's hard enough and you feel for your child and you're trying to figure it out yourself because you're in the dark, but not even give me a smidgen of positive. I remember walking out of that door going, my poor mom breathing down her neck. That's not going to happen. I look at my daughter now, who trekked through the trenches of bullying, climbed up the slippery mountain slopes of academics, jumped up at the top, got accepted to Vancouver Film School, where she is now a professional 2D, 3D animator, and then jumped on top of the clouds and has written a best-selling, award-winning fantasy fiction book, Dysnomia, that is going to be made into movies or TV series. Now, there's a girl who put away her fears, pushed down her barriers, and just went for it. So if she could go after her dream, why can't any one of us go after ours, no matter what age we're at? And I think especially for older actors, like for older people who wanted to do it when they're young or now they're retired and thinking, oh, what am I going to do now? Because I'm 66 and I feel 36 and I'm going to keep on going to the very end. And my son says, oh, you probably wear a mini skirt when you're 85. I said, I just might do that. So, it's keeping... And it's hard. We're human. We're going to go through some stuff, where we have to pull up our socks and, have a good cry or whatever. But I really think if it's something that you do want to try, just try it. If it's a dream of yours, if it's a goal of yours, it doesn't matter what age, especially if you're older, just give it a go, because you don't want to kick yourself in the butt afterwards if you didn't go for it. And kudos Chris, my son, for giving me that little extra push.
Thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you fellow Janet for being my guest this week. Thank you for sharing your incredible story. Everyone, if you're interested in taking Janet's class, all the information on how to take her class will be in the show notes below. Also, information on where you can find her best-selling book. I highly recommend you read it. It's an incredibly inspiring story. And again, we are supporting a fellow second act actor and doing what they love, bringing their art into the world and into the community at large. When one of us shines, all of us shine. Thank you, Moira Rose. The Gospel According to Moira Rose. I hope you'll tune in next week for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye!